Recording in progress.
All right. Well, and welcome to the public hearing on September 3rd, 2024. The time is 6 o'clock, and we will open this public hearing with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just going to read this right off the paper, and then our town administrator will take over. In accordance with RSA 32:5, notice is hereby given to all residents of Newton, New Hampshire, that a public hearing for the purpose of gathering public input on accepting the funds of a FEMA grant in the amount of $62,754.94. It will be held today, Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024, at the town hall. The public is encouraged to attend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. First of all, I'd like to thank the fire chief for his diligence in chasing down grant money. This grant originates at the federal level through FEMA. It is then passed down to all 50 states, each of which has a Department of Homeland Security. So the FEMA money went to the New Hampshire Department of Homeland Security. Under Homeland Security, there are categories that you can apply for. The chief applied for this grant under the Assistance to Firefighters Fund, and it's a challenge because it's tremendously competitive because everybody wants money in this day and age. However, whatever the chief sent in the form of information was compelling enough for the Division of Homeland Security to award Newton $62,754.94. The chief's rationale was, we need to outfit the new ambulance when it comes to town, and this is for equipment and materials related to getting that roadworthy and put in use as soon as possible. There is a match of about $3,000 approximately, which will come from a grant match line within the fire department budget. So I would encourage you to, a motion to accept and expend this grant, and again, thank the chief. Did Trish help? No. Wow. All right. She's the FEMA queen.
You're not using your mic.
Whoa.
It's on-
Now you tell me.
We need a motion?
No, that's fine.
Not yet. So you should probably encourage public comment.
Is there any public comment? Speak to us accepting these funds? Seeing none? And we'll close the public hearing. Next, I'm going to call to order our Newton Board of Selectmen meeting on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024, starting at 6:07. We will start it with citizens' input. Does anybody have anything they wish to speak about? Go ahead.
Please step up to the mic, sir, so that we can hear you.
Name, address, all that stuff.
John Sylvia, 41 Highland Street. Just in relation to the Greenie Park fields and maintenance. Every year the ball field, the baseball league gets the parents together and we put in a solid, 10, 12 hours on one day at Greenie and one day at Magnuson to get the fields in playable condition. The upkeep of the fields isn't being done the way it should be done. The town has gotten some quotes from Oasis to redo the fields. I reached out to him and got some insight. In addition, he does field maintenance, and it makes the most sense to have somebody that builds baseball fields to do the maintenance. So I just wanted to make the selectmen aware of that. I also brought some of the fields that he maintains, which is pretty impressive for you guys to look over. But in order for him to provide a quote that would be comparable to what the town is currently paying whoever the landscaper is over there, he would need to understand what they do, because he can give a quote on how to maintain the fields, but if it's not, if our landscaper's doing something different, we know he's not bagging the grass, and that's why the infields go to hell. We know he's not fixing divots in the field, you know, things like that. These are all things that he'd do because it's a field that needs to be maintained and be made playable year-round. But he asked me to get insight on what you guys are currently paying for, or what we are currently paying for, and then he can make a comparable quote and incorporate anything above and beyond.
John,
down.
can you get from him exactly what he does? Exactly what he does and what should be done to maintain the fields once they're in proper?
What he does is he drags them at least every other week, and he would mow them, and the grass would be bagged, and just generally address any deficiencies within the field. You know, so if the baselines are getting worn down and they're starting to puddle, he'd bring in material, take care of that, things of that
So
nature.
he's talking more or less overall upkeep of the fields, not just general mowing.
Correct. In addition to the general mowing properly being bagged and disposed of so it doesn't reseed in the infield, he would also just be making sure that they're playable year-round. And that would allow the baseball, when they organize these parents' days, to address other things aside from, you know, weeding the entire infield. You know, we can do fence repair, we can, you know, paint the snack shack, we can repair dugouts, things that we can't do because we have 80, 90 people down there weeding infields and edging and getting it playable.
So could he just give us a quote, John, on, I think it would be helpful, of what it would cost us to do all of that, to make sure that the fields are maintained in the condition that they should be maintained, rather
Absolutely.
than just trying to compare it to somebody who's not doing the work, because that doesn't even make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna pay to have them done, I want them done exactly what he's talking about, have them done, maintained, and then further down the road, what happens is you end up saving money because he doesn't have to do as much work to constantly maintain them. It's a lot quicker and easy for him to.
100%, and then, you know, we don't run into a situation 5 years down the road where we have to redo the field because they
Exactly.
didn't maintain properly.
So if he could give us a quote for that, that would be
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, I can
Because we
organize
know he's one of the only people that specifically does that. It's not like you just can hire a landscaper, like you said, because they don't cut the grass properly. From what I understand, if their blades aren't constantly sharp, they end up pulling the grass, it tears apart the grass.
And they don't drag the infield.
Exactly, and then we end up with grass growing on the base pass and all of that, so.
And they also don't know the correct dimensions of the field. So what ends up
Right.
happening is they go in and edge it. And baseball's guilty of it too, because we have a bunch of parents there and we're just trying to get these things playable. So, you know, we go through an edge and next thing you know, the field's 4 feet wider over 2 years because,
Right.
you know, this guy, he knows the measurements, he does everything.
Right.
This is what he does for a living, it's the only thing he does. And it just
Exactly.
makes sense in the long run to save everybody time, aggravation, and money.
And my understanding is that the other companies that do this work end up subbing contractor work to him to
Yes.
do for them, so if we can just go straight to the horse,
Makes the most sense.
that would also be cheaper, we'd be cutting out the middlemen.
I'll leave these with you guys so you can just see some of the fields that he does. I mean, I was pretty impressed when he sent this over with it. I'll give
All
it to
right,
the
that would be
secretary.
great, thank you very much, John.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, John. Just for the community's edification, the original proposal called for the refurbishment of 3 fields over the course of 3 years. In the suggestion that John makes, there are 2 things you need to be aware of. One, it's not clear to me that they carve out ball fields from a master contract that may identify you do the beach, you do the safety complex, you do the town hall, and you do the ball fields. So we might have to ask the current landscaper to carve it out so that we do apples to apples.
Right, exactly.
Please keep in mind too, that next year it won't be if we engage in a relationship going forward, should you decide to do that, that next year, the field that they do this year will be maintenance, and then another refurbishment. So the number goes up, and then over time, you're maintaining 2 fields, and then in the 3rd year, you're maintaining the 3rd field. So that maintenance piece will increase over time to maintain the integrity of the original work product. Just keep that in mind. It's not a position one way or another, but there are variables that we need to look at and hopefully try and address so that everybody feels like they have all the information to make a good decision going forward. And I will look at the contract. My other set of eyes will look at the contract tomorrow and see if it's carved out, and then that's an easy number to share with John. If not, we may have to go back to our current landscaper and say, hey, you know, how did you arrive at the value of Greenie Park, the ball fields?
Yeah, I personally don't think he does the same services that this other gentleman provides.
Correct, and actually, if I may, he knows this guy, and he knows him very well, your current landscaper. And apparently, the statement was made that, you know, I had told Newton years ago they should have hired you to maintain the field. So I don't think this is gonna be a heavy lift when you go back to DJ or whoever, JD or whoever it is.
Right.
So I've put a lot of time in this in the last couple of weeks, you know, because like I said, we spent, I personally was down the field about 13 hours this spring getting it ready. And then I spent another 8 down at Magnuson. And when my wife went down to go get ready for the fall softball season and sent me a picture of the field, it was like, what did we even do? You know, it actually looked worse a few weeks ago than it did at the beginning of this year. That's how bad it was.
It
So,
looked pretty weedy when I was down there last week.
what's that?
The infield looked pretty weedy when I was down there
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah, it looked like the rest of the outfield, is pretty much. So, just appreciate it.
Yep. Sure.
Please do, yeah.
Sandra Estabrook, taxpayer. I coach T-ball Little League when my kids were little, so I'm not against T-ball Little League. I think it's a good thing. But if we go with this contract, is it coming from recreation's budget, or is it coming from a town budget?
Which contract are you talking about?
The field contract that he's just talking about for maintenance of a field.
We're not
So,
even close to that.
well, I guess for my question, who maintains that field now? Is it maintained by the Recreation
The
Commission? or is it-
landscaper.
But who pays him? He doesn't pay
That,
himself.
that would come out of the town,
Right, so
town
is it
budget.
town budget or recreation's budget?
Coming out of the town.
comes
budget.
out of the town budget right now.
Okay, so that'd be something, like I said, if.
Because that's like he said, it's all tied in with all the other areas that he does, so that was under one contract.
Right, but this is more specific, so I don't blame you, you'd want to be pulling it out. If the guy just landscapes and mows lawns, a lot more detailed to landscaping a baseball field and keeping up to specific things. So that was just my question, because then if you go with the contract, then that budget, like they said, will possibly go up every year. And I was just wondering which budget
Well,
it would go in.
exactly.
We will be addressing a lot of items in the recreation budget this coming year.
Yeah.
Things that have not been done in the past that all of a sudden are coming to light that we've had to do.
Yeah.
So we will be addressing those issues moving
Yeah,
forward.
that's what I was wondering, if you're speaking for recreation, or you'll have a co-speak with them. I wasn't sure who maintained that fields, or all the fields.
Oh, yeah, no, recreation will be involved in discussion if, depending on what happens, so that their budget can be
Right.
appropriated to what would be
Yeah.
needed.
I'd hate to get them in a contract and nobody wants to give them any money when it's a good idea.
Yeah, no, we'll be looking at all of that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, very, very briefly, I believe that the investment that the town is about to make is also going to warrant a look at how we manage the property in terms of who does what when, scheduling, what time of the year they're allowed on the field. If you have people on that field in the springtime, they are going to kill everything. So we need to regulate that. It's weather dependent. You can't have a hard and fast policy. But at the same time, when you drive down there on a given day and there's a game going on and nobody knows who's playing, we have a problem. We really do.
We're looking
We're
at.
working on that.
Yeah.
We're looking at addressing that with recreation. Joey Yellow and his wife have researched probably about 10 area towns, what their field use programs are. So we will be looking at that in the next couple of months or so to define and come up with a program, come up with a form and a program and a protocol for moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, Joe, if you've already scratched the surface, you'll see that many of the surrounding communities give their field management over to the school district because they have a lot more need for field space with all the programming that they have. And the town basically comes in as a first right of refusal after the school's needs, which is not uncommon. This is unique is because it's our needs first in town. And we may have to be the driving force in creating something that's town-specific and unique. And again, we want to preserve the investment for years to come. And it's good thought, because I think everything's coming together at once, and if we can address it in a sound, fiscally responsible manner, that's taking into consideration the needs of all of the users, then we should be fine. And we need a big honking sign that says, if you haven't reserved this space, don't walk on the field.
We're the only town around that doesn't have a policy on the fields. If you check every surrounding town around us, they all have a policy on how to use it and everything.
Awesome block.
I want to move on, but now I got to clarify some things. Just to be clear, we're in a 3-year contract agreement with the landscaper. There is a separate page just for Greenie, where it does say that he bags everything that's cut there. So if he's not doing that, that's a different conversation we have to have. I get it.
Oh, I know. I know.
And I completely understand. I'm just saying that which is fine, that gives me teeth because it says right in his contract that it's to be bagged and removed. So, but there's a 3-year contract that we've already signed, so we have to deal with that as well. It is carved out. It does list specifics of what he does, when he cuts it, the height of the grass, all this other stuff.
Perfect.
But it's signed until 2027. So we'll deal with that. It'll be on the agenda at some other point, and we'll hash all this out.
Think of it this way, if I were in business, I wouldn't sacrifice my entire contract for a segment of it.
I completely agree, but we'll address it.
Correct.
For sure.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else want to say anything? All right, hearing none, I will move on. You good? I can go right into the motion.
Item 4.1 is
if
to
you're
accept
good.
and expend
Yeah, I can
the
go right
Assistance
into
to
that. That's
Firefighters
fine.
Grant.
Who's got that?
We've had the discussion in public session. There'll be minutes, in the public hearing, there'll be minutes associated with that. However, when it comes to a motion, that should be in your minutes because it's your action. And now would be the time to make that motion.
Sure. Somebody pick it.
Move to accept and expend the Assistant for Firefighters Grant in the amount of $62,623.79. The town will match 5% of the grant for a total of $65,754.98.
Second.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Joe. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. All right, next up, I would like to invite our state rep, Mr. Robert Harb, up. He's going to give us a brief synopsis of what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. I'm Robert Harb. I live in Plastow, but I have had the unique pleasure and honor to represent Newton, Plastow, and Southampton the last 2 years as one of your 4 state reps, along with Charlie Melvin, James Summers, and J.D. Bernardi. I thank you for the opportunity to come before you to talk about the State House, the House of Representatives, and what's happening up there. I think the first thing you might want to know is currently there's no bills before us that directly impact and specifically impact Newton. And one of the reasons is we're out of session. And I'm not sure that our audience understands how we work at the State House, so I thought I'd take a moment and run you a little bit through how do we work, what do we do there. Some of you are about my age or older and might remember when the State House of Representatives only met once every 2 years. The law was changed, and now we meet biannually, but we only meet 6 months during the year, technically, January through June. That doesn't mean we have the summer off. During the summer, the representatives partake in committee meetings, reviewing some of the bills, etc. It's important for your citizens to realize that every bill at the House of Representatives has to be introduced by a representative. We don't really have citizens' petitions directly. So I offer my personal email to all of your citizens. It's just my name, bobharb@aol.com. When a citizen contacts me and says, I have an idea, I'd like something presented, then I work to put it before the entire House of Representatives. Last session, from January to June, we had about 950 bills. In the House of Representatives, every bill needs to be voted up or down by the entire House. So it's kind of unique if you understand, as you have here, committees. The 400 members of the House of Representatives are divided into 20 committees. When a bill comes in, the Speaker of the House will assign certain bills to different committees. I'm on Resources, Recreation, and Development. We got, out of the 950 so bills, 48 last year. Every bill that goes before a committee gets a recommendation. Pass, fail, we're not ready yet. It then goes to the entire floor, and everyone at that day, when it comes to the floor, gets to vote on a bill. So we make recommendations, as your committees make to you. And then the committee makes a recommendation, it goes to the entire floor. And that's between January and June. We still have some time before next January to submit some bills. So if anybody has a bill they would like us to submit, any of your reps or myself, just let us know and we can submit them. But it has to be submitted by us. And there are time frames, and they're very limited when they allow us to submit bills. There was one year, I know, we had over 1,500 bills submitted that we had to handle within 6 months. Although I say we don't have the summer off, the next time we go back officially will be for veto day. The governor currently has vetoed about 8 to 10 bills, and then it goes back to the entire House and the Senate. It takes a 2/3 majority of those present to override a veto in both the House and the Senate. So it could be overridden in the House, but if the Senate says no, it stays. So we have veto day. That day hasn't been set yet. Last year it was in September, but it hasn't been set yet. I thought you might find it interesting. I made a list of those 950 bills. I'm not going to go over every one. But I thought I could give you some topics and some of the key bills that we did pass this last session of 6 months. Under public safety, we expanded the definition of first responders as essential service providers, underscoring the necessity and the service that these first responders give us that helps them in pensions and injuries and things like that. So that bill was passed. I don't believe we have any in Newton. I know we don't in Plastow, but we also protected historic covered bridges to make sure that they're not destroyed by overweight vehicles. We did increase the penalties for those that drive under the influence to try to protect the public. On the Second Amendment, a bill was passed that defends the privacy right of people to store firearms in a locked vehicle. Education, the education freedom accounts were still upheld, and I find this very interesting. We passed the bill to ensure all New Hampshire students get copies of our Constitution and election laws as part of the statewide civics education curriculum. And I should put this in, I'm also the town moderator in Plastow and the school moderator for Timberlane. If I don't mention September 10th is the primary, your moderator, a good friend of mine that I spent time with last week, will call me up. So remember, September 10th, please go out and vote. Under childcare, we did modify and simplify childcare regulations by eliminating the issuance of certain cards so that we can give more childcare. This House is very aware of sometimes there's too much red tape, and we limited some of the red tape in getting alcoholic licenses for restaurants. I'm going to skip to election integrity because that's a question everybody asked, especially with the upcoming primary. Bill was passed that allows town clerks, assistant clerks, and clerks pro tem to actually deliver ballots, absentee ballots, to elder care facilities to give our elder citizens an opportunity to make sure they get their right to vote. Advertising, political discrimination was fought by saying all bills and rates for political advertising have to be the same. This is a new law that I find interesting because the Secretary of State asked me to take part of it. We did require the Secretary of State to conduct audits of ballot counting devices and the results of elections. I've been asked by the Secretary of State to partake in that on September 12th, a couple of days after our primary. We're going to meet in Concord, and then there's a number of different people on the commission to review and audit the results of the machines and the tabulations for certain different towns. So that's the first time that's going to happen. Some of you may remember the Secretary of State can go out and audit different towns. It did audit Wyndham last year, if you remember, but now it's by law they have to audit. My memory is I think it's 3 different locations. So, but we're going to audit them in Concord. My committee passed, and the House did pass, a bill to remove the fees for any veteran to go into a state park to show our thanks for the veterans. And lastly, government transparency. Lobbyists must now disclose who their clients are and how much money they get from lobbying. If you've been to the State House, lobbyists must wear certain name tags that are orange. And it's not that if you see a guy or a lady with an orange tag, you run the other way. But if you see somebody coming towards you and they're wearing an orange tag, you know they're a lobbyist. So as they address all of the representatives, at least we're made aware they're lobbyists. So there was quite a bit of work, 950 bills. This is a pretty hefty amount, and we get that all done within 6 months. But I think more important is if anyone has any bills they'd like, we call them citizens petitions, but they're really petitioned by the rep, but it's the citizen to ask us, would you put something forward? And I always work to try to help the citizen. And we have a certain group of people, of educators and also researchers. So sometimes a citizen might come to us and say, can you put this bill forward? So the first thing I do is research, has it ever come forward? What are the results of it coming forward? Did it pass? Did it fail? Why did it pass or fail? So I carry on a dialogue with the citizen, and sometimes I say to them, maybe you don't want to submit it in this fashion because it failed 12 times, but maybe we can tweak it and work on it. So it's good to be able to have that research, and we have legislative researchers that do that for us. So it's an interesting year this year. Next year, we don't know where we're going because someone asked me what bills are coming before us. We'll probably know a little more at the end of November, where preliminary bills are all submitted, but I don't usually get the list of all the bills until January. And then we sift them out and see which ones affect our towns and affect us generally. Generally is like my committee passed a bill that went to the House to lower the allowed arsenic in your water levels. So it should be lower, not higher. We also, with the House and signed by the governor, PFAS bills to work on not having those all forever chemicals in any of the products we have here. So it doesn't maybe specifically say Newton, but the water quality, quality of the environment affects all of our towns, and we look, all your reps look at those to see how can we benefit our communities by getting those kind of bills passed. So I can try to answer any questions you want, just don't ask me to repeat the 950 bills, but I was afraid your chairman might.
No, I wouldn't do that to you. Joe, you got any questions?
I don't.
Joe?
No, well, I do. Basically, I think Newton's been on the back end of a lot of things over the past years, maybe because we don't know it, maybe because our reps haven't been engaged enough to look at some of these things, but what are some of the things that we should look for to, any suggestions? Is there some of the things that we should probably look at to?
Well, I did have one of your constituents contact me to look into like the roads going into your ponds and lakes, and I did that research and gave them back the answer to that. I think water quality, subdivision control with water as an issue is important, because I know water is important for all of us. I'm actually, probably won't be my time, as Norm Major, my mentor, had said, when he 50 years ago tried to bring water to Plastow, and now it's there, but Plastow's just down the street. So maybe many years from now, are we thinking of running a water line into Newton? I don't know. Those are the kinds of things I look at. The elderly, what are we doing to help the elderly and the children? What are we doing to help the children? So it depends upon your community, what you think is the most important. You bring it to us, the reps, and we'll get it before the State House. You can Google bill searches come like November or December, and it's on the website. Everybody can look at them. If you got a particular topic, you can just put the topic in, and it'll pop out many bills. I always get asked, Bob, do you read all 950 bills? Some of us remember Cliff Notes from school. I read all the Cliff Notes on the bill, but some of these bills go on for pages and pages and pages. And what I find, because of the committee structure, is I read in full all 48 bills that came to my committee. I read all the amendments specifically. The other 900 bills, we do get Cliff Notes, and it really says this is what the bill's all about, but not all 20, 30 pages of each bill. We must depend at the State House on our committee structure. So we look to the recommendations of the committee, because they read every bill. I get asked by people, what do you think about this resources bill? What do you think about this park bill? Because we're in charge of parks, state forests. I read every bill. So you can't expect the legislators to be an expert, but the committees are experts. So that's why we have the committee structure. I can tell you, finishing my 6th year in the State House, I think the committee structure works well, because I don't think anybody's going to be able to focus on 950 bills, and that's a small amount when before it was like 1,400, 1,500. But I know the committees can work on 50 bills, because that's what makes it a little easier, and we depend upon the committee structure. So I think it's a good structure. I think our State House is in good hands. I think that our process of how bills get passed, how bills get defeated, how they get public hearings, like you had a hearing today on the FEMA bill. I think it's a good process. I think New Hampshire is top of the list on how we handle things. So what can you look for here? I mean, I can make an effort. If you give me a topic that you're most concerned about, I can watch those bills. And I may not be able to read the 950 bills in full, but I have friends in other committees. So I can call another rep on a different committee, because all of your reps here in Newton are on different committees. So if some committee comes up, I can call them and say, hey, we need your help in this in Newton. So I'm here like not as a moderator, but almost as a go-between. We're here to help the people. We do the people's work in Concord. And I'm there to be your voice, to be your action, to help not only Newton, Plastow, and Southampton, but also have to look at that level on what's best for the entire state. So that people say, I want to live in New Hampshire. I want my kids to grow up in New Hampshire.
You mentioned one thing, you mentioned the water line coming through. Has there been any talk down the road of any commissioner or whatever wanted to extend that into Newton?
I haven't heard any. That's why I say I'm thinking really in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a lot. It took almost 50 years to get it to come to Plastow. I won't be around another 50 years. But I think it's something to think about and to say, gee, does the town even want it? Is there a way we can do it? I mean, I think when they redistricted, they put Plastow, Newton, and Southampton there, because if you drive up 108, you get Plastow, Newton, Southampton. So the water is going to be there. If you go down, I used to live on Sweet Hill Road in Plastow, highest point in Plastow, there's a water tank there. I mean, it's not far thought to bring it down Sweet Hill, hit 108, and move it up. But it takes money, and the state helped contribute for that. So I think in the future, and I'm not talking 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but I'm thinking, no, we need water to survive. What are we, like 90% water, our bodies? We have to have water, and clean, good water. So it's just a thought to think about.
Newton's not home to 2 Superfund sites, so it might take 100 years,
Yeah,
not
it's true.
50.
You're right, yeah. You're right.
So,
Any young kids in the audience? I don't know. There's a young man.
John's the
You
youngest.
might see it. He might see it. We have to think positive in the future. We have to think what's going to help.
Well, no, but I'd like to say thank you because of, I know this year, thank you to the legislative, a lot of grants were put out there for the different towns to access, and we as Newton did access from the planning board's aspect of, for housing and the water, so that we can at least maintain and protect our watersheds and be able to look at them so that it was with the federal grants that now we'll be able to, having studied it and looked at it, set in place new ordinances and put them in place so that we can protect the developments that take place so that we don't overuse the different watersheds and protect those watersheds, as opposed to some of the businesses that would come in, as we were told, like dry cleaners, used to be a highly toxic business to be placed anywhere near a watershed because of the possibility that it would pollute it. But now there's a lot of different things that are put in place. So because of that, I would like to say thank you. It's enabled the town to be able to help take care of itself in that aspect.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And before I forget, I want to congratulate you on your 275th anniversary coming up. I'll see a lot of you there. I'll be here Saturday and Sunday. It's a great opportunity for all the citizens to come out and visit, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Representative Harb. I have two questions related to two subjects that you spoke of. One deals with lobbyists. I'm sure you know that almost every community in the state of New Hampshire relies on a group called the New Hampshire Municipal Association to monitor legislation and advocate on behalf of all of the communities in the state. Do you believe that there might be an opportunity? I guess the bill that I wrote to you about was to prohibit the use of taxpayer dollars for the use of lobbyists. Many of the communities who avail themselves of the New Hampshire Municipal Association's Legislative Services Division rely on them because we don't have the staff to monitor the legislation that's going to the 1,400 bills or the 900 bills. Do you believe that there's any opportunity going forward as you start to dissect this particular topic that the municipal association could be excluded from that type of consideration. I know they have to wear an orange badge when they speak. I know they represent towns. But we get correspondence on a regular basis saying, hey, this is coming down the pike.
Yep.
You might want to be mindful of this. And I know they speak and advocate for towns who can't afford to send an employee, first of all, to hire an employee to do that function, to then go to Concord and advocate for the cities and towns that exist. And I just wonder if there's been any consideration of that particular onus that the towns would have to absorb if they considered NHMA to be a lobbyist firm.
Well, that's a good question. I can tell you I considered it because being a town moderator, I attend seminars put on by the New Hampshire Municipal Association for about the last 12 years. And I call them for questions. And when I came up in Plastow, I spoke in favor of letting us use town money to pay for that. And I'm also a practicing attorney in New Hampshire and in Mass. And I just told the citizens, look, if you really had to pay these attorneys to answer a question, you would be spending 10, 20, 30 times more than what it costs the town to belong to the municipal association. And I respect the attorneys that work for them and their opinions. And it's always good, as attorneys say, to have a second opinion. So I know sometimes I was told, well, you're a lawyer. I go, yeah, but opinions are opinions. It's nice to know, am I off the wall or am I on the track? So I'm in favor of allowing people, and I voted that way, I'm in favor of allowing the towns to spend their money because I think it saves the town and the citizens money. And I'll speak highly for the New Hampshire Municipal Association. They come to my committee and speak on our bills. Not all of them, but some of them, and I respect the people that come. So, hope that answers that
I
question.
know we're grateful. They, I guess advocating for towns through the legislative process is one aspect of a multitude of things that they provide in terms of financial guidance, legal guidance, and I also believe the seminars that they put on are absolutely top shelf. They're put on by professionals who know what they're talking about. But more importantly, they make themselves available after the program to either talk to them, or they'll give you a card and you can follow up with a call, and they always get back to you. They're very responsive.
I agree with that, and if the citizens here don't know, at any time I can call the Municipal Association during the whole year and just ask to speak to one of the attorneys, and they pick up the phone and they get back to you. You know, I have the same questions sometimes with school and the school meetings I have, and I can't say anything more, but I really support them because it supports the towns, it supports our people, and it saves us money.
And one more question, then I'll stop the Zeke. In terms of PFAS and the relationship with private well owners, I've had experience with municipal waters that have been PFAS that are above the New Hampshire parts per billion, which is much less than the federal parts per billion. And also with private water supplies, mainly wells. The role the town, I believe, should play between a polluter and a well owner is to access the resources at the state level to come down and help the well owners as they craft their response to the polluters. And my experience is that the state of New Hampshire, especially our epidemiologists, are absolutely over-the-top responsive. In one community, we had no less than 15 public hearings. And it was for a specific segment of the community where it was well owners and the polluter. And we were very fortunate because the polluter owned up, if you will, to being not the entire contributor to the problem, but a partial contributor, because they're not going to take out responsibility because of the liability associated with making that type of observation. But in the end, those well owners ended up getting public water, much like you just described, from a neighboring community that decided to run a main down the street. And while the ground was open and they were all getting public water services, Liberty Gas came by and used the same hole. And now they have gas and public water And originally, some people were upset because they said, I've never paid for water before, this is foreign to me. But their property values went up by 25% because of the utilities that they now had access to because of this terrible, terrible situation. So I would encourage the communities, and I would encourage our board, that if the topic ever comes up and it hits home, that the towns be facilitators, don't take ownership of the issue, because it's not a town problem. It's between a private well owner and the polluter. But again, the state resources were just, can't say enough. They did such a great job.
I agree with you, and that would be a good task for the town if they were sort of like a moderator and had a meeting, because then myself and the other reps and the senator can facilitate getting the state people to come to those meetings and encouraging them and requesting they be here. I think it's a great idea. We did a similar thing in Plastow about a year ago about the water line and running the water down. Education and knowledge, I think, is important. So I'm all in favor of educating the public, letting them know what's happening, be transparent, and then, like you did tonight about the fields, ask them to give us input and questions and suggestions, because we're all just humans, and you never know when you're going to get a good suggestion from somebody. So I believe we should have that open transparency. So.
And despite our efforts to distance ourselves from the well owner polluter relationship, we're finding across the state, and quite frankly across the country, that training exercises by our local fire department with the use of foam are actually contributing to PFAS in private wells. So despite our desire to keep arm's length from private well owner situations, we're being drawn in because, in fact, our training exercises were probably done in an area where people's wells have been compromised. And that's kind of, it's eroding our ability to say, not my problem.
Well, I think the chief was here, the gear that the firemen used to wear, never mind the foam, the gear was made with those forever chemicals. And so then the fire department has to replace all their gear, and how they clean them at the end of the day, and the foam. I saw in the newspaper the other day, a bunch of firemen were bringing their foam someplace because it had PFAS in it, and it had to be specifically taken care of, because you can't just dump it any place. Again, it's almost, if you think about it, it's like when people used to smoke a lot and we didn't know about the cancer and the smoking. We didn't know about PFAS and PFOS years ago. But now we know it's a forever chemical. If you didn't know, it doesn't disseminate. It stays in the ground forever. So it's not like, it'll go away, don't worry about it. Oh, it'll disseminate and then go in the sky. And no, it's forever. So I'm glad that our state reps and the senators are moving to pass laws to protect our citizens from it, because it's a deadly chemical.
The only thing that PFAS will attach to, based on their chemical composition, are water molecules, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So if they're in an area where we have a watershed, or an aquifer, that's going to be the location where that type of thing will migrate. And I'll just close with this. I was looking through a photo album when my kids were younger, and I come from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I have pictures of my children immersed in foam from foam day, when the fire department would take all their vehicles down to the local ball field, shoot foam onto the field, and the kids would all run through it. And who knew? You know what I'm talking about, Chief.
Who knew?
And who knew back then? It's just like you described with smoking and cancer. You just don't know. And I would not suggest that the state increase their parts per billion to the federal level, but at some point in time they might want to look at that and just see what's reasonable, because it's been around forever, right? But they call it an emerging contaminant.
Yeah.
That's been around forever. It's not emerging. It's been here for quite some time.
I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Thank you for
Good
that.
suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Appreciate
you
being
very
here.
much.
Thanks.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
MJ, would you like to come up?
Lions and tigers and bears.
Do you want me to remind you?
Nope.
Okay.
Hello. Okay, before, you should have in front of you appointments for ballot clerks that I need for the upcoming primary. You'll have some more for November, but this is what I need for now. They need to be signed, so they will be legally working the election. That's item number one. Item number two, and we did budgets last fall. I had put in extra money in the election budget, not only because we have for elections, but because since I've been here, and that's well over 20 years, election workers and supervisors of the checklist have made $10.12 an hour, and that has never changed. And I wanted to put that up to 15, which I had told you that's what I wanted to do, and that's why I put it in the budget. So I can't come up with a figure because I don't have any set amount of workers on any set election. It's a handful here and there. The supervisors are 3. They meet a couple of times a year for a couple of hours. So you're not talking thousands of dollars. You're talking hundreds, that's all. So that's what I would like to do for this upcoming election, if that's possible. I'd like to raise everybody up from $10.12 to $15.
Okay.
And, oh my God. I'll leave that one on you. I don't know if you need to vote on that or not.
We will,
We will.
Okay.
after you're done.
Okay, just for so you know what I'm working on, I have new dump stickers coming, we have a new color coming. I do not want people running into town hall to get these dump stickers. I will let you know how they're gonna be passed out and when they're gonna be passed out and how to do that. We haven't really worked through that yet, but I am running very low, so we had to order more. The color is changing. It will be green. That's what Tony wanted, green, so. The other thing is, just so you know, I want to give you a heads up, in case you're wondering, I am working on a contingency plan for the future, the near future, in case I find myself shorthanded for staff in the future. So I have that in the works already. And that's all I have to say.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
You're welcome.
You guys have any questions for her?
No, I'll make a motion,
All
so.
right, go ahead.
I move to approve a pay rate increase of all election workers from $10.12 to $15 hourly.
Second.
Motion made by Joe, seconded by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous.
And in continuing, I move to appoint Thomas Cameron, Mary Cameron, Tricia McCarthy, Diane Warren, Christine Kosmowski, William Landry, and Amanda Aiello to the positions of ballot clerks.
Second.
Motion made by Joe, seconded by Joe. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Jim, you got something on the health department septic fee application?
Yes, and basically, I'm looking for comments, concerns, but primarily, basically a nod for me to form a little in-house committee involving the planning department, a health officer, to review the application fees. Not to be confused with the inspection fees that follow work that's done. Currently, it's hit or miss. We're all over the board in terms of what we do for application fees. As an example, there are no application fees for putting in a well or putting in a septic system. They do get charged the inspection fee at the end of the rainbow, but there's nothing up front. But many a builder in town are paying fees for the work that they're doing on a number of projects. We basically would like to do is to bring things in line in terms of reasonableness. I believe that, Sam and Mr. Dorman both believe we are woefully low on what we charge, not only for final inspections, but also for application fees. And it's just simply to bring us in more uniform alignment with other communities and what they do, but more importantly, try and get us all on the same page in our own community.
Yep.
And we'll, if it's okay with you folks, we'll come back with some sort of recommendation in the form of a report.
I'm good for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Let's see, what do we got next?
I'm gonna, make a motion, Mr. Foreman, about the ball fields,
Greenie Park.
Greenie Park. So I'm going to move to award the bid to refurbish the 3 fields at Greenie Park to Oasis Property Maintenance in the amount of $19,000. Over the course of the next 3 years, this work will be done. Funds to come from the Recreation Revolving Fund. This is considered a sole source provider award, since this type of work, like we talked about earlier when John was up at the podium, is a specialty item, and it's not just something that a regular landscaper is capable of doing.
I second that.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Joe.
Joe A.
A.
And so the intention, of course, is 1 field per year over the next 3 years.
Over the next 3 years.
And for the
And then we'll
communities-
discuss the maintenance.
Right, so
to
the
be
fir-
done
the-
on top of
The first
that.
field will cost $7,600 this year. The second field next year will be $5,300. And the third field in the third year of this bid will be $6,100. Those numbers vary because I believe the dimensions between
The
mound and
fields
plate
vary.
are different, or the amount of work that needs to be done. The first one is?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't,
But yeah, they vary in size.
you're right, I got it.
It's actually less than that. You all,
Okay,
it's $4,999.
Yeah, they did the softball field first, even though the bid says it's the second field. That's where,
that's kind of where
that's where.
I was going
that's
off
where
of,
it
but,
was, yeah.
okay.
All right, having heard that, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay. Next, we get a timber yield tax map 12-1-4.
I move to authorize a tax collection to collect the timber yield tax levy in the amount of $114.86 for tax map 12-1-4.
Second.
Motion made by Joe S., seconded by Joe A. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Next up, we have the cable committee invoice for the police software.
I
We
move
had an
to,
unanticipated invoice associated with police software through Microsoft, and then obviously primarily through Armand. There was no provision in the operating budget for the PD to absorb a cost of this nature. I've consulted with the chairman of the cable committee and asked if the cable committee fund could be used to pay this invoice. And here, live in person to speak for herself, is Diane Moore. Oh, you're not?
No, I'm just a member
Ah.
of the board, but that runs with me. So, when Jim brought this up to me, we hadn't been getting our reports to tell us how much is in that revolving fund, but I was informed that it was under 50 grand. So, for this year, as I suggested, I said, yeah, for this year, we should take it out of that. But each department from here on in should be putting
Budgeting.
all that back into their budgets. That includes your phone systems, your antivirus systems, your leasing for your PCs or your purchasing, the firewalls that you have, anything IT related will have to go back into the individual department's budget. But there is one exception, and that would be the town hall. The town hall people share the
executive, it's the executive budget, it's fine.
So it's gotta go into something that's common that it can be used. Now, whether you wanna take off every single thing and put it in the general government budget, that's up to you, how you wanna divide it up.
Sure.
Killing me. It's killing me.
Yeah, well, you know, this fund, when we originally did this, there wasn't all of this issues that we have today with security.
I know.
We didn't need all of this. Now, unfortunately, we do, and it costs a big dollars.
Yes, it does.
So a couple of items to augment what Diana's just said, that, you're done? Some years ago, I think we got as high as $17,000 a quarter in franchise fees that go into this fund, and that's what it's used for. It's now down to 14,
Yeah,
because subscribers are falling off, and they're going with cable, streaming, discs, whatever they're
Different
just not
platforms, yeah.
subscribing. And that's the genesis from which we get our monies to pay these things. The second observation I would make is that 2 years ago, the Board of Selectmen asked each department to include those needs in their operating budget, which they did. And we were handed a default budget by the community, meaning they weren't in the prior year's budget, could not be carried forward in the default budget, so there was no money for anything. And we relied entirely on the cable committee to help us through that particular time where there were no funds that were in anyone's budget. I think it would be helpful, since this is kind of a new initiative, and I don't know if it was asked the last time, we were contemplating shifting the responsibility back on the departments. If the cable committee could provide us just a list of, by department, of what services fall under this category, because quite frankly, I never would have thought of telephones. I wouldn't have thought that. I'm thinking of computers, firewalls, and things related to that. So if there are what I would consider ancillary items that will fall back on the departments, they probably need to know what they're gonna need to budget, and in terms of service, and also in terms of what the, I guess, estimated cost would be.
well, the committee can't give you that information, but your finance department has all the bills and invoices. I can say, I can help her with, and tell her that, yeah, this used to come out of here, so this has to go back into their budget. I can work with her that way.
That would be fantastic. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Damn, I got another job.
It's all right. We'll keep you around just yet, don't you worry. All right.
So with that said, I move to authorize payment of $14,035.20 for Microsoft software to Armon Networks, funds to be expended from the Cable Committee Fund ending in 1293.
Second.
Motion made by Joe S., seconded by Joe A. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous?
Can we note for the record that its origin is the PD?
Yeah. We'll straighten that.
Thank you.
All right, what do you got next for SFC Engineering Partnership?
Do I got this one?
Okay.
All right.
I move to pay invoice number 007603 to SFC Engineering Partnership, Inc., in the amount of $3,000 for the site visit and study completed at Town Hall and the library. Funds to come from Town Building Capital Reserve Fund, ending in 1762.
Second.
Motion made by Joe A., seconded by Bob. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, could we have a follow-up motion instructing the trustees to release those funds from that particular fund?
Sure.
As in the form of a directive, since you manage it, but you're responsible for the expenditures, but they manage the fund, so they need to be responsive to your motions.
Sure, so you want a motion for the trustees?
A motion to instruct the trustees to release funds in the amount of $3,000 to come from Town Building Capital Reserve Fund.
As stated.
Somebody say so moved or as stated.
So moved.
I'm not repeating that. Who got that?
I think I got it first.
All right. And you second? Who
Sure.
second? You second. All right. Motion made by Joe A., seconded by Joe S. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
I move to approve the payroll manifest in the amount of $78,791.13 for pay period August 11th through 24th of 2024. with the pay date of August 29th, 2024. Payment includes $0 in opera costs.
Second.
Motion made by Joe A., seconded by Joe S. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous.
I move to approve vendor manifest in the amount of $71,536.96 with the pay date of August 27, 2024. Payment includes $27,992.12 to G Mello Disposal Corp. for disposal services and $14,185 to Eastern Seaboard Concrete Construction Company for services related to maintenance.
Second.
Motion made by Joe A., seconded by Joe S. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous.
I move to approve withdrawal in the amount of $718.60 from Cable Committee revolving account with a pay date of August 22nd, 2024. Payment is to Hewlett Packard.
Second.
Motion made by Joe A., seconded by Joe S. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Minutes?
I move to approve and accept the public meeting minutes dated August 20th, 2024 as written.
Second.
Motion made by Joe A., seconded by Joe S. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
I move to approve and accept the non-public meeting minutes dated August 20th, 2024 as written.
Second.
Motion made by Joe A., seconded by Joe S. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. All right. Jim, you got something for us on spraying in Greenie Park?
Yes, just a quick update for you and members of the community. On Friday, a team from Dragon Mosquito, an application team, came to Greenie Park right about 4 o'clock. I went about 3:30 in case there were folks enjoying the park and I had to shoo them away. And I'm actually glad I did that because I had opportunity to speak to the applicators and I learned some information that was previously passed on to the town that was not entirely accurate, which is they're required to give 24 hours notice prior to applying pesticides for mosquitoes. We were told by the office folks that you had to wait 24 hours after the application before you let the park open to the public again. The applicators told me that was not necessarily true and that the overnight period between the time they put the application down and the morning sun comes up is sufficient time to eliminate any possibility of anything harmful coming from the application of the pesticides. However, again, erring on the side of caution, we kept the park closed till Sunday, but the information had already been disseminated in a variety of forums, and to change it back to, oh, you can go there tomorrow, which just created confusion that might not have been well received. So we stuck to our original plan, but going forward, for example, spraying the safety complex prior to the 275th celebration can happen around the 11th, ideally the 11th, but it makes the property accessible to participants from the 12th on. So it gets us right through the weekend, and we've taken the precautions. And Joe, if you want to talk a little bit about, Dragon had recommended we not show a movie outdoors.
Yeah, well, one of the events at the 275th celebration will be a barbecue and a movie night, and the movie will be shown indoors at the fire station. We're going to be using one of the walls of the fire station, and that's
Oop, Chief's gone.
Yeah. He didn't want to hear that.
Little does he know.
Oh, he's well aware of it. So that'll be happening indoors. We will have although the dance on a Saturday night will be happening outdoors under the tent. Okay. And along with that, I just want to let the millions of fans out there know that we have T-shirts available, which our chairman, Mr. Guide, is modeling for us this evening. They're available at various places around town for $15. So don't be shy. The other thing too is we're still looking for, we need volunteers for the weekend. Anything as little as you can give us a couple hours here, a couple hours there, it would be very, very appreciated. So if there's any volunteers that are out there that would like to do that, just contact me through my number, my emails are out there and whatnot, or contact me through the selectman's office. And we'd be more than glad to put you to work and have you do something.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I had the occasion to speak to Katrina today, and Chief Kane shot out a blast to his employees asking if anybody would be interested in volunteering at anything that needs to be done related to the 275th. And according to Katrina, they've gotten favorable responses, so you'll see family members
Great.
of some of the officers showing up to offer their assistance related to the function.
Yeah, there's one other thing that the police department has asked me to say, that they're looking for volunteers from the Board of Selectmen to join them in the dunk tank event.
How much are the tickets?
Joe went by it kind of quick, but back to that triple E. The town did the spraying so that the public knows that lately there have been some hits for triple E have come up positive around this area. And as of today, I also saw on WMUR that in Northwoods, a horse tested positive for triple E. So we're erring on the side of caution, and that we would recommend as a board that people make sure that they use the repellents, long sleeve shirts at nights, especially because they're cooler, and try to reduce the risk. As tough as it is living in the woods, I get it. But the more proactive we can be about it, hopefully we can keep people a little safer. And that's the reason why we're doing this spraying.
Just to be clear, no one has tested for triple E. They are
Correct.
found in a batch that they collect weekly.
Right.
That's all. I just wanted to make sure that we were very clear on that no one is tested for it. It's just a
Correct.
mosquito
And
habit.
Newton's traditional response is to have dragon mosquito, where larvae are identified, is to put larvicide in that location.
Right.
Which basically kills the eggs
Right.
and doesn't allow for reproduction.
Exactly.
And I guess what I would say, up until this year, it's been a very effective method for dealing with mosquito control.
Right.
I have one last thing to add. Our senior barbecue is going to be held this coming Thursday at the fire station between 5 and 6, and we'd like people to register for it so we know how many people we have coming. And we need some volunteers from the Board of Selectmen to do some cooking.
I'll be there to help.
I'll do that.
I won't be there. I will be there. I might not be there. I'm not sure.
I have a meeting with his wife for the school board.
Oh, wrong Thursday. Next
He
Thursday.
said this
It's
Thursday.
next
This
Thursday.
coming, oh, I did say this coming
See?
Thursday, didn't I? I'm
Said it
sorry. Yeah.
All right,
I'm
then
sorry.
maybe I will
I
be.
stand corrected. I stand corrected. All these days are just running together. There's so much
Yeah.
going on, so,
That's all good.
yeah,
All right, you guys got anything else?
I'm good.
Joe?
Wanna go
Yeah, that's the other thing. If everybody's done,
Yeah, all right. I'm
go ahead.
I move to go in a non-public session under RSA 91A:3A compensation.
Second,
It's a roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Joe?
aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Dan's an aye.